Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest-running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasiewicz.
Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome to Social Chatter, episode 289. My name is Christian Karasiewicz, and we've got a lot of great topics that we're going to be discussing with you this week. You know, each week we bring you the latest breaking social media news, and this week it's actually going to be a lot about Facebook. Not necessarily a good thing for Facebook, especially with this update coming out from Apple this week. But we're going to be talking about some Facebook ad changes. They're going to impact your business for sure. It's going to require really, I think, getting to know your customer actually a lot better, and knowing who you're going to actually be, letting your customer have like trust in you as a business. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about LinkedIn Learning Hub, as well as an update from YouTube. If you ever had a YouTube channel and you need to make some changes, it's like trying to unweave a ball of yarn, right, Sarah? Like, you got to try to find like, well, where's the end? Where do I make this change so that it impacts this? But I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Sarah Monroe, to intro our guest this week.
Hi, good morning. I'm really excited to introduce Deb Mitchell. I have followed her for a couple of months now, actually, and she's everywhere. She is my go-to person when I want to learn about some new tool because she's out there testing it. She's been a creative director, she's a social media manager, and she's got that big picture marketing perspective that she brings to her work as the social manager for Agorapulse. So welcome, Deb. And I think I got your title wrong, didn't I? Community manager.
Right. Yeah, I'm the community manager for Agorapulse.
And what is Agorapulse? I mean, I know what it is, obviously. Sarah also is using it. But tell people.
It's the most amazing social media scheduling tool there is. We've got the ability for you to schedule directly into multiple profiles. We've got amazing reporting. And my favorite thing is you could take all the comments that you get on your LinkedIn and your Facebook pages and YouTube, and it puts it all into one inbox. So it makes it super easy to manage your comment, especially on today's topic on ads.
Definitely, yeah. And so I got to say, I've been using Agorapulse for quite a while. I think since they started, actually. And I love the tool. So if you haven't checked it out, I'm going to drop a link to Agorapulse in the comments. It's just an amazing product. I know Sarah and I were talking about it just yesterday, and I was telling her, I was like, you know what, I need to get you in there like to see how it works because I use it quite a bit. My favorite feature, by the way, that you all offer is the queuing feature, where I could set up these buckets of content. So, for example, let's say I have a podcast that goes out. I can put all of my episodes into one bucket. I set a schedule, and then it'll just pick from the bucket.
Yep.
And it just keeps recycling them. And you can set time limits for like the content that to have it expire. But it's fantastic.
Yeah, so. And another cool thing is with using those queues, that if you decide for like an emergency reason, say there's an earthquake or some disaster or something that you want to pause your content on, it's super easy to pause a queue on and you don't have to like reschedule and stop every single piece of content.
Fantastic. By the way, we have a question from Letitia Campbell. Can you schedule videos in Agorapulse?
Can you schedule videos in Agorapulse? Okay, there's so many more questions that need to be asked with that question. You can push like we're getting ready to implement push for like Instagram to be able to push it to your mobile phone. That's one of the things. Obviously, you could put a YouTube video in there, a link. So no, I want to say no.
Okay.
And here's the honest truth. I never do videos, so I don't really know.
So I will say this.
We're getting some insider information from you, Deb, though, right?
Hold on. So I'm going to help you out. Actually, I pulled up a link. Actually, it says, "Is it possible to publish?" You guys have a great knowledge base, by the way.
Yeah, I know we do. That's why I'm like,
Is it possible to publish videos? Yes, you can schedule and publish a video to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or LinkedIn business pages. So I'm going to drop that in the comments here. So Letitia,
thanks, Letitia. You just got me busted.
That's all right.
No, here's the thing. There's so many features in Agorapulse that, here's the thing. There's so many features in there that, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't even use all of them. And, so it's going in there with like a purpose. Like, why are you, for example, when you go in there, what are you looking to do? And make sure, you don't follow all the shiny objects. So, so there's a lot, there's a lot to actually learn. I mean, there's tons of stuff that I don't have probably never even touched because I just haven't spent time looking at it. I go in with getting my scheduling done, but love the tool. But it's so good to have you actually join us for episode 289, creeping up to 300 here, actually.
Woo-hoo!
So I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah, by the way. We're going to talk more with you, obviously, later on in the show about community management and whatnot. But I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to kick things off.
Sure. And adding on to Agorapulse, if people haven't checked out their summit, their training videos, Deb, you're on Clubhouse, you're on live streams all the time talking about social media management too. So you have a great knowledge base and training that you offer for free for everybody.
Yes.
You don't have to be an Agorapulse user. That's my favorite part about Agorapulse is how free you are with sharing information, sharing data, sharing testing. And last week we had Scott Ayers on too, and we know how great he is with Social Media Lab. So Agorapulse, 2 thumbs up.
Thank you.
I forgot about the free summits you all do, which are just amazing. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars for other conferences to get the same information. And I mean, you guys have great relationships.
Yeah, a little behind the scenes. We've got a really super cool one coming up in June, and it's geared directly for agencies.
Nice.
So we're really looking forward to that one.
Fantastic.
Great.
Okay. So now I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
Now we'll jump in. Yeah.
And Sarah, what's the first topic we're going to talk about this week?
The first topic has been 10 years in the making. And this is the iOS 14.5 update and how it's going to impact ad tracking. So it was probably 2010, Steve Jobs was talking about the importance of privacy. This was just for all those historians when it comes to app development and app history. They were talking explicitly about the privacy needs of the users because the apps are tracking data across the system. If you don't already know that, you're going to know it now. And if you're running advertising, this is going to impact you. So what it's going to do is bring up this pop-up Christian just brought up on the screen. So these pop-ups may seem familiar. When we set up Gmail accounts on our phone, set up the Gmail app on our phone, the Facebook app, the Clubhouse app, there's always these permission boxes. Do you give permission to do X or do Y? Well, now you're going to get these permissions about letting the app track your data. So this is really where it comes to the retargeting breadcrumbs that run through the advertising system on apps. So this pop-up specifically is the Facebook ad track. And what this is going to do is let every user decide whether or not they're going to let their data be used. And that's going to have a big impact on small businesses, big businesses, everybody who uses ad tracking through their apps, through Facebook. It's going to have, it potentially has a lot of impact, but it may also not. So it can go 2 ways here, right? There are a lot of technical aspects to it. Christian, you may know retargeting better than I do, but it's kind of like a cookie system, the way that we're familiar with websites tracking across. Yeah, so there's lots of technical aspects to it. I mean, for me, what I see is that this is a great win for users and privacy and people really managing their data, knowing what they're sharing, where they're sharing it, and having more transparency for the applications to let us know how they're going to use our data, because there's been some pretty big breaches along the way. And Apple is extremely committed to user privacy. This is why any location-based apps are always asking you, do you want to share your location? Because they are extremely concerned about people being tracked, whether that can be minors being tracked or domestic violence or just privacy issues in general. Where are you? How can you be found by just using your phone? And they don't want to contribute to that stalker-esque aspect of applications.
Yeah, and this is called, so it's called app tracking transparency. Basically, it's going to give you a pop-up when you load an app to ask you if you want to be tracked. And here's the thing. I almost want to compare this to like two-factor authentication. You know, like when you go to log into Facebook, you can have Facebook prompt you for a code, for example. And it's security. It's to secure your account. You know, and this sounds like, oh, it's going to be a lot of extra work. But the benefit here is that, you know, it's going to allow you to be more controlling of your data. The other side of this, by the way, they're also rolling out something called food labels. And these food labels actually are now going to appear on your apps. And it's transparency from the app maker. You know, I don't know if you all remember, maybe like back, I think in the fall.
Christian, I think we lost your audio. Deb, you and I can talk as we go along. You and I were actually chatting about this, about how we have completely opposite thoughts about how we have apps track data. For instance, I was sharing with you last night that I'm part of a running club. I'm still a beginner runner, right? And I'm part of this running club. I trust the people that are in it, but I don't put my routes up on the app. I don't let Strava know where I'm walking, you know, what my route is, right? So I'll put a fun picture and log my route or something like that. But you have a different perspective on this.
I might be in the minority, but I don't really care. No, I think your running example is a little bit different because that is like a physical safety type issue. But for all this other tracking, I'm like, they already know what I buy at the grocery store. Like, I want to hear from people that I like. So I think that customization of being able to have companies target me is a good, I want to be targeted. So I always say yes.
Right. There's definitely a convenience factor that I see too. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later too. Maybe not today, but certainly next week about Spotify. But, you know, Google knows me really well. And my Google products give me content on YouTube and through search, and my little Google app knows what kind of news I like to read, what kind of trashy news I want, or celebrity news I want to read, or things like that. And I appreciate that. I appreciate Facebook offering me events. Facebook knows when I turn on location, Facebook knows when I am traveling, and any given week I am in one of 3 states, right? So it's delivering news and weather where I am. You know, it catches up with me. It also, I love Facebook events, and I really wish the local app was a little more robust, but it's been falling apart slowly over the last year. But like you said, they know who we are and they can deliver content to us. And so this is just putting up that permission wall, letting us know that it's there.
I don't know if y'all can hear me. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, good. Okay. I don't know what happened there. I had some sort of hardware glitch. So what I was getting at actually was that, you know, and I heard that Deb doesn't care if they track you. And I think Sarah doesn't, Sarah is more concerned about it. I would say this, and I don't say it's like a don't care thing, because you're absolutely right. There's a convenience factor to this. But at the same time, what I was actually starting to say was that and maybe that was why I got muted, is that, for example, at one point, what was happening was, for example, you'd be using Facebook and Facebook would be asking, hey, we want to use your Bluetooth like connection, for example. Facebook doesn't need to use your Bluetooth connection. See, that's the thing. And what that would do is that would enable your microphone, which would enable them to listen while you're actually like, even though you're unaware of that. Does that make sense? So like people would say, oh yeah, okay, that's fine. Like let you do it. The other thing also, I will say that I think it's going to be useful to this. So when they turn off this whole tracking thing, and by the way, I saw like Laura was saying like, oh, this seemed like it was an Apple thing. It's actually going to also start to apply to Google as well. I know Google's starting to turn off cookie tracking on Chrome, for example, and things like that.
Yep.
So the other big win, I think, for people is that if you've ever been to a website and it takes a long time to load, the reason it takes so long to load is because it's loading all these scripts. So for example, if it's Facebook, it's loading all Facebook's trackers, for example, that you, like if you put a pixel on your site, it's loading that stuff, which then in turn can slow your website down. And Google likes speed, whereas Facebook likes tracking, for example. So very interesting battle brewing here. But what else did I miss, by the way, while I was trying to figure out my audio?
Oh, we were just chatting about how different users give permission. I think in the end, this people will take a hit. It will impact advertising. To what extent? I think people will give their permission. Like Deb and I were just saying, we trust Facebook. We trust different applications. And the thing is, if you're a good business doing good things, and if you actually have a mobile app that you're using as well, if you're doing good things with your data, if you're protecting your customers' information, which you should be doing anyway, then you're going to be fine.
Absolutely.
I was listening to some of the stuff from the Adobe Summit this week, and it's really interesting that some of the technology that they're rolling out, and a lot of it seems like you're going to be looking into, companies are going to have to look inward into the data that they already have and the customers that they already have, and how do they serve those customers better and more efficiently. And so I think there's going to be some pretty cool tech stuff coming in that realm. So I'm looking forward to that part, because like I want to, like, for example, I want Michaels to show me the kind of craft that I want to do, not some other random craft that I don't care about. So like, they should have that data from my purchases that I've made at Michaels to know that I like to scrapbook and I like to do like paper crafts, and I want nothing to do with knitting. So don't show me any knitting stuff.
They could convert you though. You never know.
I don't think so.
Well, Letitia said, very true, Deb, obviously. So, I love the fact that like it does help. Like you have to, like, if you don't give access to things, then it does help from the perspective of like, if you don't give access, you're going to get a bunch of random stuff and then you're going to have to sift through it. On the other hand, if you give them access, they are going to be able to help like save you some time. Then you don't have to filter out through the like hundreds of other emails that the company sent you that you didn't want. But I do go back to the point that you all both were bringing up, and it's the fact that it's the business's responsibility to protect the user's data. I think that's the key thing here, and like you do have to be careful. I mean, Sarah, you mentioned, like a running app. I think like I know there have been instances where data has been like there, depending on the type of business, some businesses, for example, let's say it's military, like they may not want certain things to be like, I think this was in the news. They didn't want somebody, like they didn't want people to be able to like, be at a facility that was supposed to like not exist. And yet somebody had worn like a fitness tracker and it showed like their run, and it
was a bunch of fitness trackers.
Something like that. Yeah. So
I've worked on DoD projects in the past, and they're very particular about where you check in and how you check in and all of those things. So fitness trackers but that's a really good example of how those users did not realize how their data was getting out there, right? They were enjoying the app, enjoying the community, and sharing their fitness routine, and it came back to have very significant implications.
Yeah. So, just one quick note, I guess, about this, and I think unless you all have anything else you want to add to this.
Well, I think the biggest hit, the most immediate hit, and where people are going to feel it, where most small businesses are going to feel it immediately, is in the ability to do the targeting that they want with their Facebook ads. And I think that's the part that's going to hurt. And everyone's kind of trying to scramble to figure out what that means and how they're going to, get the people that they want. Because I do think that, for example, I'm running an employment ad right now. And my client I was running it for was getting no traction at all on some of the larger employment like listing services, paying thousands and thousands of dollars. And we're running a Facebook ad, and I had $100 that we spent on it, and they got like a flood of applications. So in that case, that's completely working. But I also was like much more limited in what I could do. And I know probably going forward, I won't be able to do some of the interest level of targeting that we would like to do. And I realize that an employment ad is a little bit different, but let's pretend like it's not an employment ad. It's still a problem. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out over the next few months.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Because this is how they pay for their business, right?
Yeah.
This is how all those free services that we get for the open internet pays for all of their developers and their staff and their marketing and their buildings and their CEO salaries, right? They'll figure it out.
Meanwhile, we're like on a roller coaster ride.
Exactly.
And just a quick note here. So basically the feature is called, just a quick recap, it's called App Tracking Transparency. So when you install the app, it's going to ask you to allow the apps to request to track you. So that's something you're going to want to keep in mind. So when you install a new app, you won't have to do anything. You'll be automatically asked whether you want the new app to track you. So
I added it yesterday, and honestly, I've been testing I've updated everything on my phone, and I still can't get it to pop something up. So,
and one last thing,
interesting.
Well, and so one last thing I want to mention on this. So you update your phone to 14.5, iOS 14.5. There's some other features. So if you're wearing a mask, for example, you can unlock your phone with your Apple Watch without having to take your mask off, all that stuff. But you can go into once installed to 14.5, you go to privacy and then tracking. And then there's going to be an option that says allow apps to request to track on off. And then each app is going to have the ability to revoke the permission, you're going to have the ability to revoke the permission from that app. So just keep that in mind. Awesome.
Great.
Okay. So where are we going? Where are we going to next?
Going to next is LinkedIn Learning Hub. So LinkedIn describes this as a skills taxonomy. There's a word for everybody to look up, right? So it is a classification system for skill building and also skill categorizing on your LinkedIn profiles. So what this is doing is adding a bit more structure to the LinkedIn Learning Hub, at least as I can assess it right now, because I don't have access to it yet. But what it's doing is trying to give you a one-stop location for professional development and where you can build up your skills. And LinkedIn is going to give you recommendations. Their AI algorithms are going to offer up some recommendations of courses or videos to watch, things to read. I would caution, if you are a career changer, you may have to work a little bit more to beat that AI. But this is a great place where you can build skills and have all of that expertise from LinkedIn experts. They're going to bring in other contributors like Harvard Business. There's a whole bunch of other learning modules that they're bringing in that they listed in their announcement. So it's going to be an interesting one-stop place. And I'll open it up to Christian and Deb too. I don't use Udemy. I haven't used other platforms like this. What are you thinking about how this looks?
Deb, do you want to take this one first, or do you want
me to
let me know?
I mean, okay. One of the first things that I was interested in was that they talk about there's going to be, of course, I like it from the community aspect, that there's going to be some community-based learning to connect people who can, who they can learn from and who they can build skills from. So I think that's interesting. I mean, education online is so massive right now. It's interesting to have the opportunity. It'll be cool to see what LinkedIn does and what companies do and what kind of access they do. I know that at Agorapulse, we have access to a masterclass. And so, I've watched some of the masterclass, and there's some cool stuff in there. I love Amy Porterfield and all her stuff that she does with online learning. And so it'll be interesting to see how that is different than, and how LinkedIn packages it versus like individual, experts doing their teachings.
Excellent point, actually. So I will say this. So I'm going to answer Sarah's question first. So she was saying, she was mentioning Udemy, for example. So the thing with Udemy is that it basically just opened the door. There were already courses and stuff, but like it allowed anyone to create a course. And the problem that I saw there was that, and it's kind of the same problem Amazon sort of has. It allows people to create things, but then they also oversell themselves as what they're good at. So I saw a lot of people that were copying information from other courses, for example, making their own course on it, and then like driving up the reviews on things, even though the person may not have been as qualified to talk about it. That's one of the big differences I see between the Udemy side and the LinkedIn Learning Hub side. I think LinkedIn also is going to, they've started doing this, but I think they're going to start to tap more into who are the best people to be teaching courses and then go and have those people record for them versus like Udemy was open. Like Udemy doesn't have that. They rely on the user to create, to have the really good set and the sound and things like that. They tell you what their guidelines are, but they don't actually control that as much. So that to me is a big thing. And then to your other comment about, people who are already creating courses, I think if some of those people are already creating them, I wouldn't be surprised if LinkedIn went and hired some of those people to bring in the best of the best on their platform. Right. That's the one thing I think I really like that LinkedIn does is they're very specific about who they bring on their platform. They don't just roll, for example, LinkedIn Live out to everyone. They want to take people who are actually using it, for example, or using LinkedIn and things like that, so that they get the right users on the platform versus it being a free for all.
Right. You have that verification process. So, and I think it's important for everybody. Doesn't matter what age you are, what career you're in, your job is going to change over your lifetime, right? I mean, how many of us are working with tools that existed when we were in college or high school, right? None of us. And what some of the reports are in this announcement is that the world economy is going to lose 85 million jobs that are going to be replaced by 97 million ones that have completely different skill set. So continuing education, ongoing learning is going to be essential for all of us. Now coming out of the pandemic and then moving on as technology changes and industry changes.
Yeah. Anything else to add about this? I mean, it's in beta right now. I mean, just a couple of other tidbits. It's in beta, so most people don't have access to this. It's going to give you personalized recommendations. It's going to be community-based learning, skills development insights. Here's the thing. I think that people should always be learning. So like when we get out of college, for example, high school, or maybe I should take it back. When we get out of high school, because I know some people are from college for, big YouTube careers or things like that. But we go from, high school to college. And then for the most part, people stop learning, right? Like the only learning you're doing is typically like if you're at a corporation, it's, the company's got you doing some sort of training, at the company, but it's not necessarily growing your skills per se, right?
Right. And even then, companies don't invest a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, no, totally fine. I like the fact that this is out there, that people should go and try to learn from it. I would even say, like LinkedIn, like I said, LinkedIn's very specific about who they're curating for their content to create it. And I would recommend, if I wanted to like learn something new, or maybe I want to make a career change, obviously like Deb, I mean, we'll talk with you in a bit about community management, but like there are lots of skills I'm sure people could go to LinkedIn Learning Hub and get if they're like, hey, I want to get into doing what Deb does. Yeah. Like if they don't ever have the background, like, yeah, you can just start. But if it takes like 10 years to get there, how do you take, maybe we'll say the word smart cuts, like how do you take these big jumps, right? To actually like get there faster than taking 10 years to get there. So
One thing I'm curious about is what the cost is going to be. Like, is it a free thing? Is it going to be, you join and you have a monthly subscription to access to everything, or is it going to be a course by course charge? So I'm kind of curious to see how that rolls out.
And it's suspiciously absent from their announcement.
I do.
So they are saying that LinkedIn Pro members will get it automatically.
Okay.
So from what I'm gathering here, actually, it looks like, let me just get the dollar amount. I think it's going to be.
See, Christian gets the numbers, right?
I don't know. So, okay. So I found them. It says pay $12 at start of subscription. After 3 months, renews automatically for 1 year at $72. That's according to Fortune, actually. So, but what's odd is that on the Fortune article, I'm actually not finding the numbers.
So it's a little less expensive than Masterclass and Skillshare, things like that.
Yeah. I think that's the numbers. I mean, that's what's coming up in Google, but it's not actually in the article, which is kind of strange. So.
Well, and like the thing about Masterclass is that Masterclass seems cool, and you get in there and there are some cool things, but it's definitely not professional development, I wouldn't say. Whereas I would hope that LinkedIn would be, doing very specific things, very much like what Google's, talking about doing with some of their career development.
Right. I mean, there are times it's amazing how many people I meet who are in their 30s and they don't know how to run a meeting, how to put together an agenda, how to manage a budget. These are really essential skills that everybody needs to succeed and to advance.
And one last thing I want to add real quick about this is just the fact that the key thing about the content, hopefully it's not going to be watered down content. When we do talk about like scheduling meetings, things like that, having the right person teaching that is going to be paramount, because you don't want like somebody just kind of like, gloss over like scheduling meetings, for example. So I do hope they have various people that are teaching this, so you can learn from, everybody learns differently. And there are certain people that they gravitate towards versus certain people that they don't, even though it's the same information. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I'm looking forward to this. I mean, I got to say, and I've said this for years about LinkedIn. LinkedIn and Pinterest have been the dark horse of social media. Like LinkedIn for the longest time did pretty much nothing. And there's still things they need to fix. But now they're like, now that Microsoft owns them, they're coming on, I think, like a tidal wave with what they're doing. Making really good moves, I think.
I saw a headline this morning, just before we came on air, about the rise in LinkedIn usage this year. I haven't seen what the number is. I didn't have a chance to read it, but it has been exploding. And part of that could be that people are making shifts too. They are trying to get their name out there, or just network more. And people who may not traditionally have been LinkedIn users, but are now in the position to career change. They're moving from manufacturing into management or something like that. So I think there's going to be a lot more. And this will be a reason to come, more of a reason to come to LinkedIn.
Definitely.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't LinkedIn buy lynda.com about 4 or 5 years ago? So like they've already had their feet in this area, because, at the time of the lynda.com purchase, that was sort of a big deal, because lynda.com had been around for many years doing these. I mean, this is like, okay, I'm showing my age, I think, of like way back, but way back days, like when you wanted to learn like Photoshop, you went to lynda.com, and that was one of the very first places that you could learn it online from a reputable place. That wasn't somebody that just was randomly doing it. So they should have learned a lot on that road to be able to bring that experience into this.
Definitely. Yeah. And the other thing I think that's really key to that is, so when like, I'm going to say iPhone version 1. Okay. When iPhone version 1 came out, it was this awesome little product, but there were a lot of flaws, actually. Like I couldn't copy and paste text, for example. It'd be like, oh, you need to send this code. And it'd be like, I have to go to something else. It wouldn't remember it. So there were a lot of like little holes and things like that. And I compare that to this. So you buy lynda.com, you slowly integrate it into LinkedIn. And so it's like you're constantly iterating to improve it to get it to what it is now, i.e. the LinkedIn Learning Hub. So I think it's going to be a really useful feature. I mean, especially, if I'm a business and I want to like get into doing something different, go and take some courses, like level up your skills, always be learning. Like, don't just like, rest on your laurels of what you've previously done. you're constantly taking your skills and you're just stacking to where, you're becoming a better self each time. So this is gonna be good, but it's in beta. So Sarah, do we have time for one more
Second half
topic?
of the year. I think we can talk about the YouTube name change really quickly.
Okay.
Now, when I first saw this pop up, I thought, oh, this is amazing because I can customize URLs. I can do all of the little things that are such a pain with YouTube and connecting it to your website. The issues that small businesses have with customizing their URLs and putting the verification onto your website, all this other kind of coding stuff. It's not that. So what it is it allows you to unbuckle your YouTube channel name from your Google account. Remember Google Plus? Remember when we all had to sign into Google Plus and link that up with our channels and all of that, all those hoops to jump through, and who really remembers what their Google Plus login is anymore? So now you can do it just directly in YouTube. It's not going to change your URL. So if you have it linked out or other people have shared your YouTube channel, that's not going to change, but you can change the names. You may have to re-verify yourself if you have one of those verification badges, but you just go through the same process that you went through before. So it's good news in that it's making it a little simpler, especially if your business name may change and tweak out a little bit, or you are a YouTuber, maybe you're a YouTube couple and now you're not. You can change your channel name without impacting your followers or anything like that. So it's just a little more of a convenience. And it kind of is a nod to and ask the question, what is Google going to do with all of these ghosts that were part of Google Plus and now are kind of part of Google My Business and now kind of part of your Google account, but not really. So it looks like they're taking steps to make things easier.
Yeah, this is going to be, and I don't know if you have any insight into this, Deb, or anything you want to add on this.
No, not really.
No, and it's going to be one of those, go ahead.
I'm just a YouTube watcher.
So I will say this. The other side to this, and this is like every company goes through this. So for example, YouTube, like if you started originally on YouTube, like you had a certain way you created an account. And then when Google Plus came along, people could create accounts that way. And then you had two different accounts at that point, and they were not able to be changed. They're not interchangeable with how you change the accounts. So it really came down to, how the account was actually set up. So this is a good feature. If you're somebody who has struggled with this, and you do want to change your name, people always thought like, well, and this happens on Facebook, by the way, as well. They think that like, well, just because like, oh, it's just editing a name, it should be really easy. And for the most part, it actually hasn't been. So this is really good that they're finally coming out with this. And I do like Sarah's point as well. If, people do a combo channel, like how do you actually change it to something else if you want to? So it's good that they're coming out with this. They're going to make it easier for you as a user.
Right. And not changing your URL is important. If you change your Instagram username, that changes your Instagram URL. So anywhere that's linked is now a broken link. And this isn't going to do that.
No. So not a whole lot here, obviously, with that one. But it's just the fact that now, you can make those changes without actually because if you make the wrong change, or if you made the wrong change in the past, you would really change a lot of stuff for your account. And then it'd be hard to get help and actually get people to, make it help fix it and put it back. So just keep that in mind now. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do, we've got the second act, right, Sarah?
Right. The second act.
Second act of the show. Very simple. We got some questions for Deb, and these are questions to help you also, by the way, if you're a business owner, for example, like we always like to talk to our guests and get their feedback. Sometimes it's in line with exactly what they do, for example. So I know this week, so we've got Deb on from Agorapulse, and we just want to talk with her about building a sustainable community for your business. I know that there's tons of distractions, right, Sarah? We've got distractions, we've got burnout, we've got information distrust. Obviously, we talked about that briefly today with the Facebook ad tracking changes in iOS 14.5. So Deb, I've got 3 questions for you.
Okay.
And the first question is, so what's your experience been like over the past year building a sustainable community? Because you've got, obviously now everyone's building communities, right? So what's your business, or sorry, what's your experience been with that?
Well, I think this year has been, as for many of us, has been an interesting year, right? So I would say this year has been exciting and stressful because particularly for many businesses, we all had to pivot. And so it was exciting because having a community is a great spot to support people. And so, for example, Agorapulse, when the pandemic hit, we really looked inward and said, hey, what can we do to help our clients and our customers? And how can we, they're, having to make massive pivots. How can we support that? And so we started changing the way we talk to them. We started talking about, giving them tools and things that would help them through the unknown, and sort of giving them that things to help them pivot. But in addition, I think the past year's been a time of many people having really hard conversations surrounding diversity and that kind of thing. And we try to create a safe spot to have those kind of discussions. And so having a community is, awesome when you can do those kind of things. And stressful, I think, for having a community, especially this past year, it's been very, very much minute by minute, like day by day, as to what's happening. And one thing you plan for the community all of a sudden needs to change, or needs to be canceled, or a guest doesn't want to talk about that anymore, or those kind of things. And so, like, as a community manager, there's been a lot of pressure to react quickly and try to be there for our community and sort of give them the opportunities to for us to support them and try to help them through this crazy year that we've had. So I think that answer is a little bit different for this past year than I would normally say, but that's how this past year has been.
So I have a question off of that, actually, real quick. And it's the fact that you mentioned this, like you're sort of in a way pressured to do things one way versus how you may normally do that. How do you handle something like that? Like, because that's a pretty big shift sometimes within a community.
Well, and I don't want to say like there's like pressure so much, like, but it's just, you feel like that's what we need to do. It's sort of that. It's more than pressure. So pressure might not be the right word. So ask me that question again, Christian. Sorry, I got caught on that word pressure. I'm that's not the right word.
What I was saying was like, so sometimes you're wanting to do things one way, and then you're asked to potentially do things another, like the outside part, almost like there's a bubble pushing down on your bubble. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. So like, I think when you're doing any kind of marketing, there are things that you can't change very easily. But with community can be something we do different from tomorrow, or something something happens today, or there's a vibe that starts to develop, or something that starts to happen in the community. And within minutes, you can get in there and like try to shift the mood and shift the sentiments that are happening. And you do that by listening to the community. And I think we discovered that our community wanted to be able to like stop the content instantly. And we don't have a button that says stop all publishing. So what we realized is that we needed to have a method, because of course, having as amazing as our tech team is, that's not a change that we can make overnight. That's something that, that the whole back end has to be like re-engineered and redesigned and rethought about in order to make a massive change like that. But as a community, we could provide a resource to them of like, hey, if you start using cues like this is how you can do this quickly. And by realizing the need that happens, and so having a community, you can quickly jump in and like help and sort of change the trajectory of things.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I love the example of the stop publishing feature, because that's a way to like take into account what the right thing to do is and make it easy to help people. I mean, that's a great idea to have that.
Well, and the ironic thing about that is that we did that at the very beginning of the pandemic, and we're like, people want to stop what they, when you do content, it takes a lot of work to do content, right? And you don't want to lose it, especially because a lot of it can be reused. And so, what the ironic thing over the past year, there have been multiple cases where we've had to pull that out and say, oh, by the way, if you feel like you're having like an emergency, whether it was the hurricanes in Texas, or if it was any of the unrest that was happening in the United States, this is what you can do. Same thing for Europe. We were able to say, hey, look, this is how we do it. So it's ironic how over the past year that just listening to the community and realizing, hey, we can do something for them and we can do it rather quickly. That was cool.
Definitely.
Right. Or those proactive things that you already had in place are now coming to the forefront because you were thinking ahead. You were really doing crisis management or anticipating the needs of your community before they even realized they needed them.
Yeah. And crisis management is one of those things where a lot of businesses don't think about it. They, they wait until like something happens. Then they're like, they either do nothing because they're like, oh, I already put in all the time. Why would I want to redo it?
Right. There have been multiple times this past year as the community manager, I've like raised my hand and said, are we gonna have a plan about this? This could be a problem. Or you could kind of see the writing on the wall and things. And multiple times we haven't had to use any of the plans, but just having those discussions and actually having a community there that cares and that wants to support. We are super lucky at Agorapulse because our community is a very positive community. Even if somebody wants something different, they're still very positive about how they approach it. I do not have to deal with a community where it's, people complaining all the time. Yeah. So I'm super lucky in that regard.
And I mean, I just would say just the fact that the other good thing about building a tool like that, or at least a feature for something to manage like a crisis that's going on, is I also think that it helps, and Laura sort of mentioned this as well, like always have a plan. I think that this actually helps people think more strategically rather than just get it out there, just ship something, because while shipping something is important, you need to have a roadmap. You need to have, a plan for your content, for example, and this is your social media updates, for example, and you need to be thinking. And so by having the ability to potentially to be smart about what you're planning out, I think it will help you, mitigate all those risks that potentially come up. And it shows that you're actually a smarter, like, I'm not saying like somebody's like doing things the wrong way, but it helps you also come across as a very proactive thinker to your customers.
Well, and for those of you that think I'm talking about solely about like a Facebook group, and you don't think you need a Facebook group for your business, I'm also talking about I also manage the inbox that we have, and so it is commenting on every comment that we get as like thanks for sharing, and stepping beyond that during various times of let us know if there's anything else we could do for you. We hope that you're healthy. Those kind of comments and sentiments that we're able to do with using Agorapulse, that helps build that community up where it's not just going into like an echo chamber, right?
Yeah.
It shows the human side too, and it's bringing some of the basics of public relations, community relations to potentially your global market. Agorapulse is a global company, right? And so it's bringing those special touches that you have with community service. It's thinking through what are the implications of us using this language? How do we be authentic, and how do we really reflect our company policies and our company values rather than be performative, like, oh, we have to do XYZ because everybody is doing this right now, but no, actually make a true statement and make your community know that you are a company worth being a part of.
Well, it's been interesting, some of the interactions that I've had with people over the past year of, I sort of adopted the orange heart as an emoji as when I answer, comments and thank people and stuff. And I'll have a conversation that goes back 2 or 3 times with people about, thanks for sharing our content. Oh, we love your content. Oh my gosh, thanks so much. I'll tell the team. Oh, you totally should. I love this article. Or, so like that is building up the community around. And it's not that hard to do that. It doesn't require a big budget. It doesn't require a big team. I'm the one that Scott manages his comments. Jennifer Watson, who's our social media manager, she runs a couple live shows. She manages her comments from her show. But other than like just general people tweeting and sharing our content that we create, which many businesses can do, I manage the other part of those comments. And I think it's been really great to help build the community around that.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So I think we have one other, or how many more questions do we have for Deb?
We have a couple of questions, but I think one kind of wrap up question to all of this is we've seen a lot of trends over this last year. We've seen a lot of new things pop up like Clubhouse, which shiny penny are we going to chase this week down the social media path? We also see a big concern about misinformation. And now we have these privacy permissions that are coming into play even more significantly with the iOS update. So how do you see all of this collective impacting community building and community management?
Well, I mean, I think it makes it apparent that the community is so important to people's businesses. And, whether it's your community of people that come in your retail store, or it's people that you deal with online, or if it's people that you hang out with on Clubhouse. I think it just says to all of us that we need to be super aware of, and take advantage of, not necessarily in a slimy way, but like just really take advantage of the power of community. When you see a business struggling, like for example, local restaurants, that kind of thing in my town, I live in the Napa Valley. One of the most the number of restaurants in this area is like off the charts, right? But what community was able to do during this past year is like a restaurant would sort of indicate that they weren't doing that well, and all of a sudden the community swings behind them and they are working to, it's their favorite restaurant. They go in, even if a restaurant decided to shut down, people were going in and giving them a one good last week or one good last month. So all those things that you talked about just shows that how important community is to every business.
Mm-hmm. I remember, I think it's a New England-based donut shop. The owner's wife had cancer or COVID or was in the hospital. It was very serious illness, and he felt guilty about not being at the hospital with her. And so the community came around. They bought out his donuts in the first half hour of opening. So he sold all of his product, and then he could go spend time with his wife in the hospital.
Yeah, that's amazing. But I mean, you can do that at any level of your business,
mm-hmm.
right? And I think the importance of it is that you have to interact with people. You have to be true to yourself. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you're copying what another business is doing. If you don't want to do what they're doing, don't do what they're doing. You do you, but you do it really like consistently, and show that you care, and people will be attracted to your business, and that'll be the start of your community building.
I love that point, actually, by the way, about partly you do you, but also the fact about, being compassionate towards others and working together in times of need, for example, versus, being just so anti-competitive, like not wanting to like have someone else like push you, because competition also breeds like success for a lot of people. I mean, it helps people. It gives them, sometimes people need that push to help them kind of move things along. So I do want to throw out one question, by the way, real quick, and maybe either of you could help with this one. So this is from Prairie Life, and we're going to do this right before we go to tool time. So she was asking, any tips for shifting? So she's got a LinkedIn audience, from the industry she worked in before, corporate communications, to her own YouTube-based business, travel and photography. What do you think? Because obviously 2 different communities, right, Deb?
Yeah. But luckily, I think travel, everyone's dying to see anything travel oriented right now.
I'm watching stuff from 4 years ago, travel bloggers.
So I think it's pretty safe that if you start posting about travel on LinkedIn, people are going to be pretty excited. So there's an opportunity right there, I think. But shifting audiences, you just have to, here's what will happen. Again, I go back to you do what you want. You can listen to all the experts that you want to tell you how to do it, but like you do what you want and what makes you happy. And the people that like it will stay, and the people that don't like it will shift and go, and drop off. And if you truly want to shift directions, the fact that they're dropping off, it's a good thing, because then you're getting your audience to be much more focused on what you want to do. So, I mean, that's one of the coolest things about personal branding right now is that, back in the day, you never named your business on your own name because you wanted to be able to sell it, right? Unless you had an and son or something. But now it's all about you. And so I think that if you are shifting people, I think you'll be fine. Just stick with it. Stay consistent.
And you never know who from your past will be interested in what you're doing now and may hire you for something, because your network, chances are your network isn't going to stay where they are now either. And you'll have these established connections and this shorthand and this ability to just pick up a conversation where you left it off again, or someone can just pick up on something that you just did and make a new connection and maybe hire you for something.
And I want to add one quick point on that. So, don't burn bridges. So for example, with your, corporate communications, they may not be the right audience for your YouTube travel and photo side. However, they can help you potentially, like maybe put up post out like, hey guys, I'm starting a new channel. It's not something that, you may not be interested in it, but if you do have people that would be interested in this, I'd love your support. And, maybe they're not going to follow you, but maybe they're going to introduce somebody new. In addition to that, I'd also say, like, there's nothing wrong with also trying to build a second audience. So for example, if it's on YouTube, you're going to want to make sure, go look at other channels that are putting out travel and photo, for example, and, see like what kind of work they're doing, for example, and start to build that community there. And, you can easily take some bigger leaps just by going in, for example, joining a Facebook group that is about travel and photo, for example, learning from other people, associating yourself into other networks as well. Because there is, it's the Venn diagram. Like you're going to always have some people in this camp and some people in this one. And there's always going to be that little bit of overlap there that you're going to find where you're able to bring some of those people in. But, also don't be afraid to test things as well. So testing is going to help you, I think, get some of those people to move over. But I hope that answers your question.
Great.
Okay. So with that, we're gonna cut the tool time down to one product today. And this is a time where we basically bring a tool up that we found that we think can help you as a business. And I'm gonna have actually Sarah, do you want to tell people about the tool, and then let's have Deb actually talk about it? And the reason is because Deb actually uses this tool, or she's been looking at it. So
she does. And I'm actually going to lean on Deb. So this is called AddEvent. And it is an integratable calendar that you can easily share with people. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm a Google Calendar queen. So I'm really going to hand it off to Deb and say, how do you use this, Deb? What excites you about this?
Okay, I am so excited about this tool. I cannot even tell you. First, I love research. So when we decided we wanted to do it, add a calendar in, we're working on this right now at Agorapulse. I did a deep dive, tested multiple tools, and this is the tool that we are landing on. There are some major players that use this tool, and it's been implemented super well. So what this does is it lets you put events on a calendar. And then what it does is you can embed that into your website. You can also, it gives you a code that you can have these little buttons that you can click on that say add to calendar. And what it does is it basically subscribes you to a calendar that can appear on any of your calendar programs. So example, if you're a Google Calendar user, let's say let's say you want to follow, let's say you guys do this, okay? And you have events on different days and people want to subscribe to you. So you would, as the user, as the host of the calendar, you would put all your events on there, right? And you can have multiple different kinds of calendars, but you can put all your events on one calendar if you want. Then me, as a fan of yours, I want to always know what you guys are doing. So I hit the add to calendar button. And what it does is it brings the calendar over to my Google Calendar and puts it on its own like calendar layer, if you will, so that I can turn your calendar on and off of my calendar. So I absolutely love this because what I have is I have my work calendar for Agorapulse, I have my personal calendar, I have my son's sports calendar, and I have your calendar. And I could turn them all on and I could see what I could do when. So it's super amazing. What's also cool about this is that it lets you collect email addresses as you subscribe, as people subscribe to this.
Nice.
So that's a cool feature. There's a whole dashboard to see all the analytics. I can't really talk about that much because, like I said, we're at the very point of like, this is our chosen tool. Our team, we've tested it, and we're waiting for our web dev team to add it onto the actual live site for Agorapulse. We just went through a massive website redo, and so I'm in the queue for this to be able to come up.
So I have a question about this. Okay, so I think it's like $19 a month, I think, right? Is that what it works out to? For small business, by the way.
Small business, yeah.
19 a month for small business, $9.99 a month for the pro plan. So one question I have is, okay, so how does this differ from a Google Calendar? So if I set up a Google Calendar.
All right, so I first fell in love with using Google Calendars, but the problem with the Google Calendar is that it's very glitchy to actually get people to be able to subscribe to your calendar. It works sometimes, it doesn't work other times. I'm an experienced person that knows how to do that, and I still can't get it to work half the time.
So we're talking with a pro here, by the way, and this is the question I had, because usually you can go to Google Calendar, you can set up a shared calendar, and then and I guess it also comes down to the email address that you have. Because a lot of people have a personal email, a personal address, and they want to set up that.
Right.
And you can't really get anyone's email address from them subscribing to your Google Calendar. So they just basically, so this is like a lead gen thing, potentially from your super fans, right? Just to make sure that they're hearing about it. And what I think what we'll end up doing is I think we can make a zap to HubSpot with it. And so that we'll be able to like keep track of who's on our calendar. You know, who uses it. You can also get snippets that you can put in newsletters, which is just like an AddEvent. You can also, instead of, you don't want to do all the calendars and you only want to do one event, you can also just do an ad like that single event. So I think that's cool because I don't think like for our fans, I don't think everyone's going to want to have the lab, the social media pulse, our agency chat, our summits, all the things. They may just want Scott's lab show. That's maybe the only thing they care about. So we have the flexibility to do that too.
Right.
This is really cool, actually.
It sounds like a great subscription embed.
Yeah, go ahead. It's beautiful. It looks good. Right. And you can take the branding off if you want to take the branding off for no fee. The only thing I would say is it's a little tricky to set it up because I don't think they have the best setup instructions. But what they did do is I messaged them and, well, first of all, I messaged somebody else that had it and she gave me a Loom video and was like, oh, this is how we did it. And she shared it to me. But then I had an additional question. And that their customer support actually reached back out with a personal recorded Loom video for me to follow and answered all my questions. So I felt like I got super great customer support too.
This is really cool. I got to say the piece that I really like, and I don't know how the email subscription works, but I like the fact that you could set up different calendars for the things you're doing, that, as you just mentioned, and then people can subscribe to just those calendars. And then the ability to get their email address. I don't know, how does that like sync then into like an Aweber or a ConvertKit or like a?
I haven't gotten that far yet. I can't tell you that.
But it's so much, it's so much nicer than like the WordPress plugin or the like you said, the glitchy Google Calendar that people just depend on because you don't want to pay your web developer to build a whole calendar.
And the way you use this is that you send it via email, you put it on your website, you put it in your Facebook group as an announcement every month, and you say, here's the link to the subscribe to the calendar, and then they can see the subscription to the calendar. So you just are using this link a lot of places so that people are encouraged to actually, follow it. And like I said, I have probably 5 or 6 different memberships, courses, people I like to follow that I do this on my calendar with. Yeah. So I think it's just a new way to get your information out there. There are some competitors, but I didn't like the competitors as much as I like this one. So I give it a 2 thumbs up if we give thumbs up or not.
Well, it'll certainly replace all the calendar reminders that I have for Scott's lab, weekly live labs, right?
Yeah.
This makes
I'm going to keep those going, but he's going to have a calendar shortly. We're waiting. We're in the queue.
This makes a lot of sense. I mean, and if I'm a business, for example, I mean, there's also appointment scheduling. I mean, that's another thing to keep in mind here. I mean, if you're using, a lot of people are using Calendly, Harmonizely for that kind of thing, and those are great products, but this incorporates that, and it's a natural thing because I can set up a calendar. I could then, once I have that calendar, that calendar could be for scheduling, like, for example, guests for this show, and it goes right onto the calendar versus, I will say, the way that I do work right now, it goes onto the calendar, but it doesn't give me all the stuff I want. So I like this. I'm super excited. I'm actually going to go do a little work with this, I think, maybe this weekend. This is pretty cool.
Okay, cool. Well, and maybe I'll let you guys know when we actually have it up on Agorapulse, and maybe you guys can run through it and check it out and see once we get the working model up.
Fantastic. Yeah, happy to test it.
Yeah, it'll be cool. I'm super excited about it.
And I gotta say, just gonna highlight a couple of comments from Letitia Campbell here. So her whole life is on Google Calendar.
However, you're gonna love this.
Mine is too.
And she's loving the show.
Yeah.
But she's also saying, we just added 10 more things for her to do today. But here's the thing. I always love when Letitia and I do quite a few shows together, and I love always how she's always taking notes. And, and that's the thing. I mean, you want to take notes and then take action on those notes.
Okay, I forgot to say a really important thing about it is that
what's up?
If you change something on the calendar, let's say if we canceled today and we moved it to tomorrow, guess what it does to everyone's calendars? It moves it for you. So you don't have to re-communicate it. So if you just trust in the calendar and know what the calendar shows you to be accurate, then your people will move with that. You train them the right way.
Fantastic. I love this. I'm looking forward to checking this out. I can tell you right now, I see so many opportunities with this just from the things you're telling me. Like my mind's going like, okay, I can use it for this and this and this and this and this. So awesome. Yep. I'm so glad we had you on, and I'm so glad to.
Who knew I could be an calendar evangelist, right?
It's part of community building, right?
It is.
It's the whole thing for today with you is that this is a great tool for your communities.
Yeah. Well, and this is one of those things. Like I've been saying this for like the last few years. I'll be speaking later today at the Digimarcon at Home event, and one of my mantras has always been work smarter, not harder. And this is one of those tools that it's about working smarter, not harder. You don't have to use Google might have a free product, but it doesn't do all the things that you need. So you have to you basically build a Franken product. You're bolting all these different things together, to make the process work versus if you get one product that does a lot of that stuff for you, you schedule the appointment, for example, it goes on the calendar. People can subscribe to specific calendars. You can get their email address. So therefore it reduces the need to have somebody go to your website, for example, and opt into your, email form, for example, to get on your email list or things like that. This gets them on your list specifically to the events that you have going on. And I know a lot of people have events that they're doing. So I love this. I got to say, absolutely love this find. Thanks a lot, Deb.
And just think, you can set up your Facebook ads to retarget. Oh, no, wait, you can't. We'll get back to the beginning.
Oh, man.
This has been really good, actually. So I want to just, we're going to wrap things up actually now, but I want to let people know we do have an email list. So you can go to socialchefs.com/daily. You can sign up there to get on that list. Deb, I have a question for you, for our viewers. What's the best place to get in touch with you? If people want to connect with you, learn more about you.
I live in Agorapulse.
Agorapulse, yes.
Yeah. You can find me at, I have a Facebook page, Deb Mitchell. I'm there. I'm on LinkedIn. It's usually at Deb_Mitchell is where I am most places. My favorite place is Facebook, though. So if you want any kind of response, that's probably where you should catch me.
So what's
and
the
all
best?
of your events are on Twitter too, I noticed too. Everything that we're doing in a week is on Twitter.
Yeah, I run a tweet chat called Agency Chat for Agorapulse. So we do that weekly. It's later today. We bring a guest on and we talk about agency specific topics
Awesome.
and marketing type topics.
Fantastic. Yeah. So find Deb Mitchell, Deb_Mitchell, I think on Twitter. Is it Deb dot or Deb_ on Facebook?
I don't know.
Okay.
You'll find
Just look
me.
up Deb Mitchell. Here's the thing. Just look up Deb Mitchell. You'll find Deb. You'll find Agorapulse.
Yeah, my face is ever on all those places. You'll see me.
And Sarah, people can connect with you at Sarah Monroe VT, right? Yeah, on all the socials.
Yep, on all the socials. You put Twitter up there. I will start tweeting more. Christian's making me tweet, so I will be tweeting more.
So yeah, again, it's if it's Instagram, for example, it's just Sarah Monroe VT. So definitely
Sarah Monroe VT everywhere. Well. Yep.
And then I'm at Social Chefs on most of my channels. Actually, I think on all of the channels. But with that, couple quick notes. Don't forget, blog post recap goes out over the weekend. socialchefs.com/SC289. There's also going to be an Alexa flash briefing version. Basically, it's a 5 to 7 minute condensed version. I'm pretty much just going to run through what the topics are, tell you a little bit more about our guest. And don't forget, we're going to be joined next Thursday by Valerie Morris. And that's, I hope I got the date right here, May 6th, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with Valerie Morris. And that'll be on youtube.com/social chefs or facebook.com/social chefs. With that, I want to thank everybody for tuning in, but I want to thank our guest, Deb Mitchell. Thanks a lot for spending just a little bit of time with us. And Sarah, thanks a lot again for also just excellent co-hosting. With that, we'll see you all next week.
Thanks for having me. It was great chatting with you guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.